So I'm Vicky, I'm here from the National Archives. So we essentially have 1,000 years of government history in our archival collections. From Doomsday to now archiving government tweets, we've got a real range of things. So naturally, there are many women's voices across our entire collections. As a state archive, these voices are in many instances passive voices, but our suffrage collections represent the point, I would argue, where women really truly start to be heard by government. So despite wanting to promote women's history within that context and not just focus on this one moment, our collections are really strong around the women's suffrage movement, and particularly, frustratingly for this panel, around militancy. So essentially, I guess that's the moment that government starts to become really, really obviously interested in the movement. And so although we do have gems like this, so it's an address to Queen Victoria on her Diamond Jubilee signed by Whistle Fawcett for her. But things like that are rare. However, even within the militant side of the movement, I think there are many myths to bust, and our collections can kind of work towards that. So here we have a Home Office index showing 1,333 people that were arrested, many multiple times, as part of the cause and work there. And I think that's really what we're trying to focus on, is those kind of voices. So even when we're looking at militancy, we're looking at the lesser known figures, and that's what the National Archives collection kind of allows us to do, because it doesn't focus on important names, it focuses on things that were in any way of interest to government. So we are also doing an exhibition around suffrage. So our on-site exhibition will focus on the WSPU, because we do have some things like this which were essentially seized on raids. So you can see some of the annotations at the top. That was actually bought by a police officer, the 7th annual report there. And then we've got things like one of the examples of code that was used in the WSPU headquarters. So it's been typed out, you can see it's an exhibit. So because of the power of some of these records, we will be focusing on that in that exhibition on the WSPU, and also in our collaboration that we're doing this year with the National Trust Creative London team. However, around that, our programming is very much going to focus on telling the other stories. So because we don't have necessarily the records to tell those stories, we're trying to do it in more creative ways and bring in external speakers to be able to do that. Also, I guess probably arguably our biggest collection on women's suffrage is maybe the census. So either census boycotts with an absence of information, or protests such as this. But also just the general data that we can collect, and lots of people like Jill Liddington and Elizabeth Crawford have done just generally using the kind of census data. So that will be another emphasis of our work throughout this year. Will be to look at the other kind of creative forms of campaigns that were happening, the other societies that were instigating them. So we have records on the tax resistance, for example, as well. And yeah, just to pick up on the kind of programming that we've got, so we've got people like Jane Robinson coming to speak about the suffrage pilgrimage, and other wonderful speakers, but I just thought I'd put the map up because I quite like it. And this is a rare example, actually, of why non-militant records get into our collection, and in this instance it's because actually on the pilgrimage, some of the pilgrims did suffer from kind of attacks and abuse and harassment, so that's why that then ends up in the National Archives collections. So just to quickly signpost some of the things we've got going on, feel free to follow us for updates on Twitter. We've got a new hub website that will supposedly be released on Monday. So yeah, check out that. That brings together all our existing resources. We've got a Women's Suffrage Research Guide. Obviously our real aim is to get people researching the original records if we can, and that should direct people through that. And I've got a couple of copies of our What's On booklet, so if anyone's interested in events, check that out. We've got an Archives at Night coming up that will be suffrage themed. but within the context of wider women's history in that kind of 100 years since, so that will be our opportunity to tell that side of the story. And then we've got a bit of a thing at Victoria Station on the 6th in the morning, but it's a bit under the radar at the moment, so look out for that basically. If you happen to be there, it should be quite cool, pop-up related kind of thing. And also, my past have put up quite a lot of our suffrage records within the last week, and I believe they're really searchable, I think until the 8th of March. So yeah, take advantage of that.